Right, right. So a very good morning to everyone here again. Thank you very much for coming. So I've been invited to provide this keynote speech, and also when I asked, what topic would be good, for this conference, and the organizers said that something along the lines of business strategy, looking at something a little bit more sustainable as we have gone through the pandemic, and of course, with the digital era, the fourth industrial revolution here, let's look at something into that, right? So, and hence the title of my keynote today: Sustainable Business Strategy in the Era of Disruption and Digitalization. So what I've done today, and what I put together today for today's keynote is really some of the work that I've done in the last 2 to 3 years. Right? I think someone's yeah. All right. So what I've done today for this presentation here is really to put together some of the key work that I've done within the last 2 to 3 years, because my area of research is really around the area of business strategy and looking at what's trending in the industry and around the world, right? So because of that, I actually come up with a lot of different types of strategies to help businesses survive and thrive in this age of what I call as DVUCA, which is disruptive, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, right? So before I start my presentation, I'll just share with you a little bit about my university and where I come from, right? So for most universities out there, they actually have a campus. For Sunway, where I'm at, we actually have a city, right? So we have a university right in the city itself. And in our city, we have a lagoon, we have a shopping complex, we have hospitals, we have places to stay, everything within 10 to 15 minutes all around the city, right? So that's where I'm at. In the business school, we have just gotten our AACSB accreditation, so that makes us one of the top business schools, top 6% business schools around the world. Besides that, our degrees are also validated by Lancaster University, meaning that students that actually come to Sunway Business School will get one certificate from Sunway and one certificate from Lancaster University in the UK. Right, and other than that is also our degree programs are also recognized and accredited by a range of professional bodies like ACCA, CIM, ICAW, and so on. And of course, in the Times Higher Education ranking, in business economics, we are in the top 300 to 400 rank over there. Right, and it was our first time, right? So we are really proud of it. And this is how the business school will look like in 2026 onwards. So the new business school is being built, right? It's all glass, so it looks very nice. So if you have the chance in the future, do come by to Sunway. So Sunway is in Kuala Lumpur itself, which is the main city capital of Malaysia, right? So it's very nice. So let's look at some of the trends that are actually happening around the world. The first one is mega disruptions, right? So mega disruptions seems pretty common in this age and time, right? And what do we mean by mega disruptions? Essentially, mega disruptions is a kind of disruption that is not very minor, but is so big that it affects many people, many firms, many industries, many countries, essentially the whole world. Right? And the latest mega disruption that we have encountered is actually COVID-19. Right? If you look at COVID-19, it is really a serious mega disruption because it has created lockdowns around the world. And even now, in many countries, we are now in the endemic stage. But COVID-19 has still a profound impact because we are now, very careful. When we go out, we wear masks. When we actually, meet in person, we are social distancing. So we have a lot of things that actually happen because of that. Right? So mega disruption is one of the trends that is very common these days, right? And of course, COVID is one example of mega disruption. Another recent example of mega disruption is the Ukraine and Russia conflict, right? That's another form of mega disruption as well. Yes, the conflict is happening between Russia and Ukraine, but the impact is actually around the world because the world actually trades with both Russia and Ukraine, right? So that's the first trend, right? Mega disruption. The second trend is digital transformation, right? I think since 2016, we see the uprise of the fourth industrial revolution where new age technologies are being proliferating in the marketplace, right? New age technologies are things like artificial intelligence, big data analytics, blockchain, machine learning, Internet of Things, cloud computing, and etc. Right? And because of those new age technologies, you will see that the industry and the marketplace engaging in a transformation to keep up with the latest developments of technology. And if you look at digital transformation in tandem with mega disruption, you will realize that COVID-19 could also be a blessing in disguise, because yes, it does take away a lot of lives, but it also improves a lot of lives because it has accelerated the technology adoption and digital transformation by miles ahead, right? And the forecast and estimation really is that COVID-19 has accelerated technology adoption and digital transformation as much as 10 years, right? It will have taken us 10 years, right, to adopt all these technologies, right? For example, for universities to do things online, you have to take them 5 to 10 years to actually get all those things done. But because of COVID, everything happened. The transformation actually happened overnight, right? But maybe not overnight, but within, let's say, 2 weeks or so, right? We see that across the world, right? So the second trend there is in terms of digital transformation. The third trend that is really happening around the world is the aging population, right? As you can see, population aging is happening, right? As compared to the past, the world is expected, right, to have an aging population that will reach 30% by 2050, right? And that's very important, because although that seems to be about 30% in a very long time to go, right, in about 28 years more to go or so, but the problem is that a lot of countries are now facing this immediately, right? Because if you look at certain countries, the statistics are actually much higher. Like for example, in Japan, majority is actually aging population, and they actually need to do something about it. The same case here in Southeast Asia, in Indonesia, and in Malaysia, we actually have a growing population of older adults. And it's very important to note that the population of older adults in the past, of course, they were all born before the World War, right? But the aging population of the present and in the future is actually our baby boomers, right? Our parents. A lot of them, previously, they were just considered working adults, but now they have actually transitioned into the aging population, and that's why the aging population is growing, right? And when it comes to aging population, there is a new market over there that needs to be, whose needs and wants will need to be satisfied, right? So it's important to acknowledge that trend. And besides the aging population, it's also important to recognize the intergenerational shift that is happening, right? And in a lot of research that I do, for example, in this case, in terms of consumer behavior, it always, amazes me that, how researchers still think about millennials as young adults, which is not the case, right? Millennials have actually grown up a lot, and now they're actually in the middle age group, right? So millennials are no longer young adults anymore, and the real young adults are actually Zoomers, right? The Gen Zs, right? So as we can see, there is an intergenerational shift that is happening out there today, and that is very important to acknowledge, because when generations move from one stage to another, it affects the kind of products, the kind of services that we need to provide in the marketplace, right? It's like, for example, right, when you were in school, right, you will need to wear uniform. You don't actually need a lot of clothes to actually go out, right? So people actually, at the age group, they don't actually have a lot of fashion, right? But when it goes to working adults, then you actually have a lot of fashion that you actually need to do, right? And same case, with a lot of different things, especially in banks, financial services, and so on. As the customers transition from one generation to another, they will need to actually come up with different types of banking products for them, right? Especially for the aging population, right? Because if you look at many countries, there is the Employees Provident Fund, right, which is the savings that people actually put in every time, and then once they actually retire, they can actually take out the savings, right? So banks can actually capitalize on that, because there's a lot of money, right? And you don't want the older adults to actually be spending it right away. You actually want them to actually be saving it and keeping it in the bank, right? So you can actually create products for them. So that's why it's important to actually recognize not just the aging population, but also the population at large, and that's what we call as intergenerational shift. Besides that, the last and final trend that I want to bring up here is actually the sustainability crisis, right? So yes, we have the SDGs. Yes, we have the pandemic, right? And the pandemic was supposed, for example, to help to reduce and mitigate climate change. But did that actually happen? The answer was no, right? Climate actually became hotter, poverty became worse, right? So previously, before the COVID-19 crisis, we actually made progress in terms of poverty. We actually managed to reduce poverty by a certain percentage. We were actually on the right trajectory, but COVID-19 turned that all around, reversed all the progress we did, and now we're actually in trouble, because a lot of the sustainable development goals are not on track And in fact, they have actually regressed. So the world today is actually facing a sustainability crisis. And this affects not just the environment, but every one of us on this planet. Businesses, firms, individuals, consumers, all of us are involved in this, right? So these are the trends that are happening out there currently as we speak, right? And it's important for us to recognize this and do something about it, right? So how can we go about recognizing these trends and addressing these trends that are out there, right? So the first one here is about to look at it from the sustainability perspective, right? Because if things are not sustainable, everything else will not exist, right? And one of the problems with sustainability is that all the while we have always been advocating, all right, please be sustainable in your consumption, please protect the environment, please do things that have social benefits, improve social welfare, and so on, right? And the very notion of that kind of messages really is the capitalist mindset that has been happening, that has driven consumerism, right, from the economic perspective. But the question is, by promoting environmental messages and social messages, how far have we gone with the sustainability agenda, right? The answer is not very much, right? Previously, we have 8 Millennium Development Goals, before 2015. And when it comes 2015, we then have the Sustainable Development Goals, which is then increased to 17. So from that perspective, right, we have not been really making a lot of progress in the sustainability. Instead, we have been actually experiencing more sustainable problems than ever. So from that perspective, right, we actually have the problem of an elephant in the room, whereby mainstream consumers and firms do not really care about the environment and society. What actually really matters most to them is about the economic benefits of it. For example, if you have two products, right, one is organic, one is non-organic, and the organic one, right, of course, is better for the environment, it's better for society because it creates jobs and so on, but it is more expensive than the non-organic one. And the question is, why? Why should people actually pay for the organic one? You say that it's protecting the environment, yes, it's good for the society, but it's more expensive, right? And we don't have enough money, right? And we only have so much money that we can spend. So of course we will go for the cheaper option. And that's what the mainstream consumers are actually looking for, right? But if you were to say that, organic is healthy, it uses less pesticides, right? And it's good for the people, and it's actually the same price as the normal one that is not organic, or it's even cheaper than the non-organic one. Automatically people will say that, well, given two same products that are of the same price, but one has actually more benefits and value, of course I will buy that one, right? Or even if this is cheaper, then even more I will actually choose the better product, the more sustainable product, right? So from that perspective, it is important to recognize that consumers as well as firms in reality really look at the economic part of it first, right? Things that are closer to them, and then only things that are further from them. For example, people close to them, the society, and then only the environment, right? So one way is to align that thought. So meaning that whatever things that you want to do in terms of business strategy, you want to make it sustainable, yes, you can do that, but first satisfy the economic considerations of consumers and firms, and then talk about the societal impact and then the environmental impact, right? So that's one solution. The next solution is to look at the lessons from CSR, right? So previously, we have been very big on CSR. The whole world was very big on CSR. And what has actually happened is that, in India, for example, there is a case study that we can actually learn from there. Before 2014, CSR was not mandatory. After 2014, CSR was mandatory in India, right? And what CSR actually meant, especially for a lot of investors, was this. If a company could do CSR, it essentially means that the company is profitable, right? Because when you are profitable, then only you can engage in CSR and spend money on CSR. But if you're not profitable, you can't actually do that, right? So that was the signaling power of CSR. But once CSR became mandatory, what happened was all companies had to do CSR. And because of that, CSR loses its signaling power, meaning that everybody does CSR. How do we know which company is actually profitable and should actually get the funds to be invested in and grow, right? So that's the lesson that we learned, right? When regulations come in, it actually removes signaling power. And the latest trend that is happening is actually happening to ESG, right? Environmental Social Governance reporting. right? A lot of countries today are making ESG reporting mandatory for companies. This mandatory or this regulation here that we are seeing will suffer the same fate as CSR, right? Because we already have the lessons, we already have the precedents over there. So what needs to be done here is that how can companies maintain their competitive advantage? How can companies maintain their investors and get more investors in? Is to combine TQM, total quality management, with ESG. What this means is that ESG is a mechanism for you to report what activities you do. TQM is the mechanism for you to measure how well you have done your activities, how much improvements you have made, right? So for companies that make enough and a lot of improvement in terms of ESG, that actually creates a good signal for investors to say that these companies are efficient, they are possessing the right capabilities, they are able to demonstrate impact, and that's why they deserve to be invested in, right? And when companies can demonstrate that, they have more money, they can scale. When they can scale, then they can provide more returns, and then the whole cycle comes along, right? Because funding is very important. And this brings us to the next point in terms of funding, whereby it's important to recognize the different types and requirements of funding out there today, right? Of course, there are a lot of different types of loans out there. There are out there conventional loans out there that in the financial institutions, but more and more and more that we are seeing is the embedment of sustainability as a criteria for financing businesses out there. Meaning that it's important for businesses to demonstrate what are they doing in terms of the operations that are sustainable, right? From an economic point of view, from an environmental point of view, and from a social point of view. They're going to show the impact that they're making across all these three dimensions of sustainability. Because this is what investors look at, not just from the formal financial institutions, but also the informal ones through venture capital, private equity, and so on. Right, so it's important that businesses recognize all these kind of things, and that's why research in this area is very important, because these are emerging areas that needs research. Of course, besides finance, in the company, people are very, very important. All right, because without people, there would not be a company. Right, so it's important to think about the future of work, which is a big thing today, and what we can actually do to ensure that companies have proper HR practices that are relevant for the future. As you can see, today, digitalization is taking the world by storm. All right, all companies, like it or not, even SMEs today have to go with digital. Even the sellers on the street, right, they have to actually accept e-wallets, because that is the norm today, all right, across many countries, and I believe also in Indonesia as well, as I was in Qatar about a month ago for the QS Summit. But hey, these are the kinds of practices that needs to be in place, right? And one of the research that I've done that was published in Journal of Innovation and Knowledge, which is a Q1 journal, looks at what are the practices that needs to be in place to manage the dark side of digitalization. Digitalization, yes, its benefits in terms of efficiency, optimization, and stuff like that, but it's a lot of dark side as well, because when things become digital, people may become stressed, people may not have the skills, they may feel left out, and you have, and I think because of COVID, and for many of us, we really feel a lot of pressure, a lot of things going very fast-paced, meetings comes every time, and a lot of work has come into our personal life, all right? So we have actually more work during COVID than the usual time, right? I believe this is the case for many people, right? So we need to put in place the right HR practices to ensure that the right culture and right practice is there in the organization, right? So some of the practices that needs to be there are practices that promote employee well-being, right? So you can actually, so one of the big things that are actually happening out there is downtime that companies are actually providing. So they're actually providing 2 to 3 days downtime where the whole company doesn't work for that period. Alternatively, for some service companies, they actually have teams going for downtime to say that, okay, please take it off, right? This is not your annual leave, but we're giving you additional time off so that you can actually rest and recharge and recover, right? Other than that, companies are also providing a lot of training, all right, which is to reskill for mastery, right? Making sure that people are up to date with the skills required for latest digital technology, all right? Of course, with new technology trends coming, like big data analytics and stuff like that, a lot of companies are actually sending their staff for upskilling in terms of being able to code, to do data analytics, even at the postgraduate level. So that's very, very important. Other than that, it's also because companies today are very, very competitive. A lot of them are fighting for survival. So it's important that companies recognizes the entrepreneurial spirit of their staff, right? If staff actually can bring in customers, perhaps they should be actually given some form of profit sharing and stuff like that. So some kind of innovative practices needs to be in place in companies today to ensure that, you know, that everybody's entrepreneurial, and when everybody's entrepreneurial, the individual benefits, the company also benefits at the end of the day. Right? And other than that, of course, is to actually democratize work and work technologies, right? So new work arrangements will need to happen, all right? Remote working, hybrid working, and stuff like that. All needs to happen because we have went through the pandemic. We cannot reverse. We have seen the benefit of remote working as well as hybrid work as well, and we need to actually continue that into the future, right? Leveraging on the power of technology. Right? And one very simple example is in the world of academia. If you notice in academia during COVID, right, in 2020, 2021, 2022, this is where research actually flourished to the maximum, right? So when even you know, in my role as a dean, you know, in my previous institution and current institution, when staff come and tell me that they don't have time to do research, I say, hey, look, the world trend is different. World trend has shown that publications has actually increased, meaning people are actually more productive during COVID period, right? So these are things that needs to be there. And of course, we should not be overworking ourselves. We also need to actually ensure that work-life balance is there, right? Other than that, innovation is very important. It's important to provide an innovative landscape for the future of work. So what this means is that leadership needs to be transformational. They need to be thinking about creative ways to create innovative workplace environments. All right. So you have like Google, which, you know, very creative in there. Nobody wears formal in there. Everybody is very casual, right? Because Google is about cropping out innovation and ideas. All right. So if you want a culture of innovation and ideas to be there, you need to actually create a kind of culture for it to work. Even the environment where people actually work. Right. Other than that, it's the business model innovation. How do you actually operate in the future, moving from physical to both, you know, online and physical presence, and doing ways of doing business. Right. In that sense, open innovation is really, really important. Other than that, companies today also want their employees to be very committed. All right, you don't want, because of the big trend, which is what we call as the great resignation that's happening. All right, employees are not committed organizations, and this is one thing that organizations need to actually find a way to solve this. All right, and one of it is in terms of looking at error management culture. All right, error management culture meaning that you actually provide space for employees to explore. All right, if they make mistakes, okay. All right, but you actually make sure that you don't actually make the mistakes again. All right, so you have to support culture, right? I think someone's microphone is on. Can you please help to mute that? Thank you.
Sama di sini juga ada dua pilihan yang pertama unmute dan yang kedua.
Excuse me, can you please off the microphone? Yeah. All right. So, where were we? Right, organizational behavior. Right. So, organizational behavior is essentially saying that, you know, employees are willing to perform extra role behavior, meaning that they actually willing to perform beyond their job descriptions, right? So what in my research that I found is that error management culture helps to do that, because this actually shows perceived pursuit justice and promotes customer employee engagers more actively, creates more employee engagement, and therefore it actually promotes more organizational behavior. Other than that, from a sales point of perspective, is the concept of challenger marketing. So I would encourage you to read this paper, right? Because challenger marketing is actually addressing one of the key trends that are out there. Because today, because of digitalization, customers today, even you know, in business settings, you know, everybody have all the information from Google, right? Everybody have information on their fingertips. And once you know all your information, when you reach out to the company, what do you look for? You look for the best price, right? So companies need to think about a different way to unteach their customers about potential things that they already have, right? Because they already think about all those things through their informational search online. So companies will then need to unteach that, teach the customer something new, and then make them go, aha, yep, there's something new, there's additional value for your product here, and therefore I will buy your product at a slightly higher price, even though I've already thought about buying the product at a cheaper price from somewhere else, right? So that's challenger marketing. Challenger marketing is about challenging the customers to rethink what they think they know about your products, and then to look at what is the value of your product that they did not know about, and then they go, aha, all right, I'll buy your product, all right? And even if it's a higher price, I will also buy it. So that's the premise of challenger marketing. And this is something that I think all sales teams will need to learn moving forward in the future, because this is the future where information is power, and salespeople will need to be able to unteach customers and then teach them something new so that they actually become their real customers at the end of the day. Other than that is to leverage the power of group buying. So group buying is an underrated concept. Group buying is as simple as, for example, right, instead of buying a product as individual consumers, you actually get friends to come and buy. So if you gather 5 friends or 10 friends to come and buy something, and then you go to the seller, all right, and you ask the seller, now we have 10 people, can you please give us a special discount? Of course the seller will say yes, right? Because the seller will get 10 customers immediately. So of course, the seller can give a little bit of discount, right? So group buying is a mechanism that businesses should really be thinking of to ensure that they actually can benefit, right? Because group buying benefits the two parties, right? It benefits the buyers, it benefits the sellers. Buyers will get a cheaper price, sellers will get a bigger pool of customers, right? So group buying is a strategy that future businesses will need to actually think about. Customer engagement as well, it's important to do that. All right, customer engagement, especially with technology, they need to be thinking about using VR, AR, and so on, because all those are actually very engaging. Traditional methods such as storytelling will also work, right? So customer engagement is something that the businesses will need to pay attention in the future. Same case with personalization as well. Because of the power of technology, these days you can actually know what customers like, all right? So you actually personalize based on what they actually like. So this is something that the businesses should also be thinking about. So what is the future? I would say the future is co-created, because these days and time, this age and time, a lot of decisions are co-created between businesses and customers, so they need to actually be working together. The other one is that the future will be integrated. As you can see, a lot of consolidation is happening, all right? If you look in the logistics industry, people, when they actually want to go with logistics providers, they will go with someone that actually has warehousing, that has trucking, that has shipping. There's everything all under the belt, right? So that's a form of integration. Same case with education providers today. Like in my place in Sunway, we have the whole range, all right? We have the hospital, all right? It takes care of you when you're born as a baby. We have the kindergarten, we have the primary school, we have the high school, we have the college, we have the university, we even have the workplace, and we have hospitals to take care of you when you're sick as well. So everything is integrated, right? So Sunway is a conglomerate, and this is where the future will go, whereby diversification will happen and everything will come together as a conglomerate, right? Everything is integrated. Other than that is also the power of sharing. So now we have a sharing economy, all right? So a lot of people are going away from product ownership these days. They are actually going by sharing services. Like for example, some people don't buy cars these days. They just use Grab, or like in the case of Indonesia, they use Gojek. Right? And by the way, I met your minister the other day, Minister Nadiem, right? So fantastic person. You have a really, really good education minister with a very, very strong record in this young as well. So that's great. Right? And of course, the last two is sustainable. So everything in the future got to be sustainable, and that's very, very important, because that's where the world is moving, and we actually need to do that. That's the morally right thing to do. So a lot of things like green hotels that's coming up, and all the other green products as well. And of course, the last one is technology. Everything will be technology driven. We're going to leverage the power of technology to do things more efficiently. Right? And before I end, I would just like to share with you, this is one of the journals that I'm editing, which is the International Journal of Quality and Innovation. We are actively looking for papers in 2023. So if you have papers that you want to submit, right, whether you're a PhD student, you're an undergraduate student, or even you're an early career researcher, please consider submitting your papers to this journal, all right? It's by Inner Science, all right? So if you want, take your handphone, take a picture of this, right, so that you can actually submit your papers here after this, all right? Because when you submit your papers here after this, I will be looking after it. All right, and I'll fast track your papers through a fast track peer review. Right, so this is a reputable publisher. All right, you don't have to pay any money. It's free. All right, and you can actually use this as part of the KPI. And if you're a student, this is very good for your job. In the future, you actually want to find a job. It's very important that you actually publish. So this is an opportunity for you. All right, so International Journal of Quality and Innovation, all range of business research, quality research, innovation research will be accepted in this journal, right? So please submit your best papers in this journal as quickly as possible, because we are looking for papers for 2023, all right? So that's all from me. Thank you very much for listening. I hope the insights in terms of the different trends and the different types of business strategies that could be used to address some of those trends will be insightful to you, and will help you to spark innovative ideas to advise businesses, as well as innovative ideas for your own research, to make sure that your research that you do is trending to both the current trends as well as the current solutions that are out there that we need to know more about through research and evidential evidences. All right, so that's all from me. Thank you very much for listening.